Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Subscribing to My Podcast. Because I have a new guest featured every week, it makes it very difficult to maintain consistent viewership. So if there's one thing that you can do to support me or the guest featured on the show, it's by interacting with my channel in every way that you can. You can always decide to unsubscribe later if you decide that you hate me or my show. With that plugging aside, enjoy my discussion with Ethan Alexander. I'm officially Ethan, is part of the Unfuck America tour, and he goes around debating people, generally supporting liberal policies, but just talking to people on the other side of the spectrum. And he's had a lot of very notable conversations and debates with Myron Gaines, Charlie Kirk, and some other pro-choice and pro-life pundits on the right. So I reached out to him because I thought a lot of the content that he was doing was really cool and really interesting, and then got him on the show, and now we're talking to him today. So Ethan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell some people some important things that they should know about you.
Right. So thank you. Hi, my name is Ethan. My handle, as you said, is I'm officially Ethan, and I am a strong liberal advocate. About me personally, I'll say I feel that the left has, I guess, played too nicely with the right. I look at my prior debates with people like Charlie Kirk, with Alex Stein, and I criticize myself on handling them with like little kid gloves, even though these people are doing things that I would argue are on some kind of objective metric genuinely evil. I think it's important that the left starts amplifying the rhetoric in a not so nice way against people that are doing probably irreparable damage to this country, and that's something that I want to try to embody within the left. But that's something about me. Thank you.
Yeah, I think a really frustrating thing about the current dynamic is that when you look at things like the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the right is already accusing the left of being these rhetoric mongers who are like super angry. They're calling him a Nazi, they're calling him a fascist, and this is what causes assassination attempts. I assume that you, who are now ratcheting up the rhetoric, is probably annoyed by this accusation. I guess, how do you handle arguments like that from people on the right who are saying that the left has been aggressive for so long that they're finally retaliating? Like, they kind of say the same thing.
Every accusation is a confession, okay? Remember that. Have it like ingrained either in your body or into your skin, whatever, whatever way you can remember that. Every accusation is a confession. The truth is, the right has been doing this to the left for decades. Like Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck, right?
Yeah.
So like they had been going around calling people on the left, socialists and communists, and now like there are some like actual socialists and communists, but like I think there's like 3 social democrats in like all of Congress versus every single Republican in Congress who is getting in line behind, Daddy Trump saying that the election was rigged or stolen. It's absolutely insane. So like, do I disagree with some of the, Democratic socialists? Yeah. But when it comes to the right, their rhetoric has been unhinged for decades. Can you find me like one person who has political power on the left that was going around saying that Charlie Kirk deserved to be shot? Do you know one? I don't.
I don't. I've heard this. Yeah, I've heard this said before. I mean, I can speak to a lot of pundits and like YouTube people who didn't say this directly, but they were like somewhat supportive of it, or not supportive of it, but they weren't as aggressively against it as you probably should be. But I think people have a hard time separating statements that come from actual politicians who are in political power positions and then people who are just like on the internet, like saying opinions. Like, I know some of my friends who posted shit like on Instagram making fun of it, saying that it was based or whatever. But like, that's a person with 100 followers on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like an actual politician who's doing it. So I understand what you're saying, but I feel like people on the right are struggling to separate these two things.
You're absolutely correct, but the thing is that shows a giant problem within the conservatives themselves. The fact that you cannot distinguish these two things, the fact that you can't find me a single Democrat politician that condones what happened to Charlie Kirk, but I can go on Donald Trump's Truth Social and then see him, calling for the seditious 6 to be hanged for saying for ordering law enforcement or whatever officials to not obey illegal orders. Like that's the president, the guy that was elected to be the head of their party, saying this. And you can't find me one Democrat politician saying something anywhere near that. It's insanity. They live in two different
Yeah.
worlds, the left and the right.
Well, I think about that one news clip where Trump was getting interviewed, and he was saying that all of the hate and violence that comes from the right is super based, and all of the hate that comes from the left is crazy. And I think like that should just like illuminate. And again, I think that we've culturalized actual politicians to be like kind of pundits when there's a huge difference between somebody who's just like making YouTube videos and talk about these things and people who are actually in political power. We should be holding the president of the United States to a high standard, like to allow that to be said and people just kind of like be like, oh, based, like that's a huge part of the issue, I think too. Although I can't find examples, but I do get a little bit uncomfortable whenever the argument is something along the lines of our side doesn't do this and the other side does. Like, no matter which side is saying it, I always get a little bit uncomfortable because it comes off as so biased. But I think that Trump has done so much things that are just out of question, different than anything that's ever happened in the past, that we can finally start using these kinds of arguments. But it makes me really uncomfortable. I don't know if you share this kind of sentiment or if you have something to alleviate this discomfort for me, or like what you think about this. But I hate how partisan it sounds when I say something like this.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely something that I've had to reckon with before because it does feel partisan. But tragically, it seems to be the case. Well, I'm sorry, not it seems to be the case. It is the case that reality has a bias, and that's towards usually like liberal or like kind of progressive stances. You know, like one side thinks that I'm not going to say that every person who's a Republican believes the Earth is 6,000 years old, but every person who thinks the Earth is 6,000 years old voted for Trump. Every person who thinks that vaccines are going to give you autism voted for Trump. You know, every person that thinks that college is a brainwashing institution that's going to transgender your kids, they all voted for Trump, and all these things are just absolute insanity. So I think the best way to kind of reconcile with that, the bias aspect, is there's no way to both sides, like flat Earth. Like, you either think the Earth is flat or it's round. I mean, you can get into like meme territory, sure, but like, you wouldn't say, if you're a reasonable person, you wouldn't say, oh, the flat earther makes good arguments. You wouldn't do that. And we're at levels like that. If you give any ground to a flat earther, you are being partisan like towards them because it's just delusion, and that's where the right is. So yeah, it's a tragic thing.
I want to hear a little bit more about your conversations with some of these people on the right. Like I said, and there are people that I'm definitely missing, right? But you've talked to Charlie Kirk, you just talked to Myron Gaines recently, you've talked to some other pro-life advocates. You work with, or you're involved with the Unfuck America tour, and they are kind of the people who facilitate maybe a lot of these conversations. But how do you get in front of so many cameras? Like, how do you do this? Like, talk to me about how you do it, and then I have some questions about some of the particular conversations.
Absolutely. So really, this has just been a giant series of, I'm going to say, fortunate, unfortunate events, if that makes sense. So I'm a South Carolinian, and I'm in a very, it's actually projected to be a swing state for this election coming up. But generally speaking, South Carolina is a very red state. So a lot of conservatives have a strong foothold in this state. And what better place to like clip farm college kids and get an audience that you want, right, than somewhere like the University of South Carolina. Charlie Kirk, he was at the University of South Carolina last year. Myron Gaines, do you know how many times this guy visited USC within the last year? Guess how many times he went here?
In the last year?
Yeah,
You shouldn't be visiting the same campus unless you live there more than like twice a year.
Try 3. That was his 3rd time here, dude.
Oh,
I'm not kidding. He was here 3 times.
that is insane.
He was here 3
That's
times,
insane, dude.
Um,
Triple dipping, dude.
yeah,
He's talking to the same people 3 times.
it's crazy. It's crazy. But the
Yeah.
thing is, you'll see, un, with Myron and Uncensored, I'll say this and get back to the original point. With Myron and Uncensored, Uncensored America, the group that hosts him at these college campuses, the strongest chapter of Uncensored is at the University of South Carolina. So I'm very happy that I can at least be here as like a counter to like the bullshit
Hmm.
propaganda that they put out. So
I see.
yeah, they like hosting a lot of things here. I think they had, I'm sure you're familiar with Destiny. I think they had
Yeah.
Destiny versus Owen Schroyer here as well, but I wasn't
Oh.
there for that.
Ah, that's cool. That's cool. I yes, I actually have a picture with Destiny because he came to Iowa State, which was really cool. But I saw that yeah, I saw that the Unfuck America tour puts him in a lot of places and other things too. I face a similar problem at the University of Oklahoma. I've had a shocking amount of political pundits come here and talk about things. At my previous university at Iowa, nobody came to do anything, at least not in a way that I could engage with. So we just had Crowder here, and we've had some other people who are quite a bit smaller than him here as well. So that's just really cool. But I guess walk me through, I guess, some of the notable conversations that you've had, and like with this with the current zeitgeist of conversation from the right being so crazy, how do you like prepare for these conversations? How do you navigate? Do you have any like interesting techniques or stories? You are very, very good at latching on to the conversation and making sure that you are not the glaze, but you're like latching out of the conversation and like really hitting them. Like, how do you do this? Like, how do you prepare?
Thank you. So when we come when we ask notable conversations or like notable things, there's the internal notable things because I just like anyone am a person, right? You know, like I'm not special. I think everyone actually has the capability to confront these people, and it's really scary. So there's like the beginning phases of coming to that true realization, right? And then there's the notable moments where it's like when you have like the better experience. So and then there's like the public notable things and there's like the internal notable things. So which one of those would you like to hear about? Because there's a lot I could talk about, man.
Let's do it the public one because there have been some interesting, like the Myron Gaines one. You were talking most recently about the Alex Preddy situation,
Yes.
and I thought that like you hit like exactly where you needed to get that conversation to become so clickable, like to become so big. You hit like exactly where you needed to be, and so the public ones we'll start with there, and then we'll get to some of those internal ones because I think that that journey is really interesting too.
So with the public moments, the most
Yeah.
important thing that I've come to learn is that the right will obfuscate as hard as they possibly can because the truth is either a they're just grifting, which I'm not gonna lie. I know I called Myron a grifter. I don't think he's grifting. I'll get into that later, but like
Hmm.
a lot of times they want to obfuscate because they know they're objectively wrong on something. But if you get to the substance of that, then they will try to then they're cooked. So you can't let them obfuscate, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with Myron, what I knew for a fact is you have a guy who is legally carrying a weapon, and at no point did his arms reach for that weapon. I watched the video hundreds of times, okay, because I need to make sure I wasn't like schizophrenic, right? And
Sure. Sure.
right, but when I asked Myron about it, he's like, I don't know where his hands were. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? You don't know where his hands were at the time that he
Yeah.
got shot. Like that's
Yeah.
what's the one thing a cop says when you're getting arrested? What's the one thing?
Keep your hands where I can see them
Yeah, they're like,
normally,
show
and
me your
then like
hands, show me
yeah,
your hands, you know, shit
yeah,
like that. That's the one fucking thing that they do. I tell Myron, if you know the when cops are trained, they are always trained that the means of death are by the hands, which Myron acknowledges because he worked with DHS. He knows this. And he knows the use of force escalation, right? Like, you can't just pull a gun on somebody if they're not showing any kind of threat. Like, it's Myron.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're right on this, and I think that what you do very well, and what kind of like gets rid of this obfuscation trap, is when you find like what is the foundational thing that like decides the whole argument. Because I think a lot of the times, and this happens in the abortion argument especially, I actually think it happens more on the pro-choice side than on the pro-life side. And I'll talk to you about some of the strategies that you use when you're doing pro-choice stuff. But I think that if you can find that like foundational thing that really sets the rest of the dominoes in motion. I think that that really helps for making sure that you are locked in on what the conversation, like what the foundation of the conversation is supposed to be. And so I guess when it comes to some of that internal stuff, what are some of the things that you're working on, or some of the moments that you have where you like are realizing the experience?
Oh my God. Okay, so it was absolutely in the beginning talking to Charlie Kirk. If I was so scared going against Charlie because I was like, am I going to be the next liberal destroyed? The face of that, right? It's
Hmm.
terrifying because you're in an ocean of MAGA hats and kids that want to see you get verbally lynched. I want to tell you this right now, okay? People think that lynching parties are gone. Like the physical ones are for the most part gone, but like verbal lynching parties, that's what's happening today. That's why people want to see conservatives
Yeah.
go to these
Yeah.
campuses. And
Yeah.
when you see the video, I'm telling him that I knew his talking points really well because I'd seen a bunch of his videos on it, right? And I was like, okay, so we're gonna go over some premises. And
Hmm.
in the video, when you go over when you go over the premises, he can't use his talking points anymore because he already agreed that you can't like kill a person when they're unconscious, right?
Hmm.
The notable moment that I had internally was that Charlie Kirk sucks at debating. Like he's so
Yeah.
bad. He
Yeah.
was so bad, dude. Like
Yeah.
he's like just like smurfing against like 18 and 19-year-olds who are trying to like learn Calc 1 while he's been
Yeah.
doing geopolitics for like a decade.
Hmm.
It's pathetic. And
Yeah.
the moment that I realized is that these people are these really scary figures that have a lot of money behind them, right? They have a lot of notoriety, they have a lot of publicity, they have a lot of funding, but they have nothing of substance. It's all smoke and mirrors. And that when it hit me that was the case, it was like a mind boggling experience. Like I was,
Hmm.
because it's like you kind of know it, right? But then when you're in the crowd and then you hear Charlie Kirk say people come out of brain dead all the time, when he was
Yeah.
just like, oh, it's super rare, right? It was like it's the most clear, like absurd thing in the world.
Yes. Yeah, and then you can also tell too when what's worrisome for me, and this should be worrisome for everybody, is when they tell you your argument and they recite it perfectly,
Yeah.
and you're like, like this is like this guy actually like knows what's happening here. And then there was a moment when you were talking to Charlie Kirk where he had resaid, like you had to re-specify, like, no, it's not just being unconscious, it's the lack of ability of consciousness. He's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like from that moment you're like, oh, okay, so he's like actually he really just isn't on the same page as me right now, and I think you did a good job of referencing that, and then getting into that too. So and then most recently, you again, I don't know how you keep finding these people, but
University of
most
South
recently,
Carolina. It's cursed.
dude,
It's like
they're
a
just like
maybe there's like a satanic like ritual that happens there that just summons all the conservative ghouls.
yeah, they
That's
just
my best
spawn
interpretation.
out of the ground. Yeah, because I hadn't heard this girl. Yeah, I haven't heard of this girl before. But recently with you had an abortion conversation with a pro-life girl who was there. And then you were grilling her on harms in a way that I had not really heard before. That I thought was really interesting when you're saying like suffering. Which I guess we could talk about this too. I guess like what was your strategy going in a conversation like that? What's your like pro-choice strategy?
Okay, so there's two, I guess, like scenarios, and the truth is, I'm not sure if I would take another abortion debate in a public setting like that versus like a more formal one, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But for the public one, because I mean, I've seen you debate this stuff, and the pro-lifer has such an easy way to like win the argument. They're like, you want to kill babies, and it's like
Yeah, sure.
it's yeah, like they can just say that, and like it's so hard to like fight, because they'll just
Hmm.
intuition pump all day. But the strategy that I had with that is, or well, I'll say I'll address like abortion as a whole, and then I'll address like that. So I
Yeah,
guess
sure.
like my elevator pitch on like defending abortion is we want to create a society that minimizes human suffering. But in order to have suffering, there has to be some kind of preference, right? Now, when we talk about preferences, this is like I have the preference to not be punched in the face. there's two types of preferences you can have. There's explicit preferences, which you verbally say or you communicate some way. And then there are implicit preferences that you may not even be thinking about. So, for example, can I ask, what is your favorite, do you like spicy food?
Not really.
Not really. I hate
Kind of.
spicy food.
I'm a little bit of a bitch. Yeah.
No, I hate spicy food. I die.
Okay, good,
Okay,
good.
just like trying like a little bit of it. But
Uh,
even though you weren't thinking about it, in the time you weren't thinking about spicy food, did you like spicy food even though you weren't thinking about it?
yeah. No, I wouldn't. Yeah.
Right?
I
Exactly.
wouldn't like spicy food. Yeah. Yeah.
So that preference still exists even though you're not actively thinking about it, but the conscious mind exists, right? So that preference, even though you're not conscious, is still there, and you can map that one to one with someone who is like asleep. So it is immoral, even though they're not actively thinking. The preference still lies there because the brain is there, and that's why it's not okay to kill someone in their sleep or in a coma, right? And if there's no preferences, then there's no suffering. So a fetus prior to about 20 weeks has no preferences. Therefore, in any situation, it is morally justified. Since there's no suffering, there's no person, there's no preferences to speak of.
Yeah, yeah, and I think this is pretty solid. Like this is the language is slightly different, but I think that the way that you describe this is really solid. What I've been struggling with a lot recently is this like filibro thing. Like somebody gave me the example because I use the term harm instead of suffering, but there's pretty much interchangeable, right?
Yeah.
But somebody said you can harm the environment, and just that statement alone, like clued me into what needs to be done to win the pro-life argument. Because that is such a meaningfully different type of harm than the harm that we're describing when we say is being harmed in an abortion. Like to me, almost intuitively, like it's either you're grifting or there is a framework that's happening that like this is the only way that you can win the argument is if I can somehow tell you that just being consistent in the words that I'm using is enough to get a moral truth out of it. Like just be, hey, harm can exist in these things, and it's like, okay, but that's not what we're talking about, and you know that. You know what I mean? It's like it's shit like that that's really frustrating to me. And I guess the hard part is that when you talk about the outcomes of abortion. You talk about things like the increased rate of abusal in pregnant women or something like that. When you talk about things like that, it becomes hard because you're taking it away from the foundational is the fetus being harmed? You know what I mean? And if you haven't won that argument, it's hard to talk about some of this other stuff that is an outcome of the abortion conversation. And I think that they can always get you with that morally loaded term when they say things like, oh, you support killing babies. Like they can always get you if you haven't taken away the morality of that action at the beginning. And I thought that the debate you were having with that one girl, that pro-life girl, I thought that you took suffering in a very interesting way, in a way that I had never really thought about before, talking about the other types of suffering that exist in the mother, and you described it in a way that I think is interesting. But I think that they can always do that attack on the morality of it. And I guess, have you since thought about ways to get around this, or like, do you have a way to get away from this morally loading stuff where they just attack that you're killing babies, or are
There's
we
no.
still? Yeah.
No, because a pro-lifer, and this is why I was saying doing it in like a public setting, like the way I was doing is I would probably advise against it for most people, since you could make the best argument in the world, right? Like truly, but they'll say, when does life begin? And then, you'll say like there's a biological life that begins at conception, and that's something that, we have to bite the bullet on. But then they say, oh, okay, you're ending a human life. And it's like, well, like, if you intuition pump as hard as you possibly can, then, like, technically, but, like, this is not, like,
Uh-huh.
something that is, like, it's not, like, I don't know how else to put it other than just, like, pure, like, bad faith intuition pumping. I'll say, like, yeah, there's a human entity, there's a human organism, right? I think that's a better way to put it, because, like, I don't think
Uh-huh.
anyone would say that a zygote is a human. That implies, like, personhood. But
Yeah.
in a debate like that, there's no way to get around that if they're going to act in bad faith. That's why in a formal setting, you have to establish the preferences, because when you talk about harm versus suffering, intuitively, I actually agreed with you in that those could be interchangeable. But then when someone said you could harm the environment, I realized, oh
Mhm.
shit, like they're actually not that interchangeable when it comes to something like human experience versus like a human body. So like,
Mhm.
if you had, are you familiar with the Terry Schiavo case?
Yes, that's the guy who had the something cephaly or whatever, right? Or is this a different thing? Terry
No, I think you're
Schiavo.
talking about Baby Jax. Terry Schiavo
That
is
yes, Sam. Sorry, go
yes,
ahead.
no worries. Terry Schiavo is she's like the Roe v. Wade of brain dead patients, or like permanent coma
Hmm.
people, I should say, not brain dead, because brain dead means
Yeah.
you're literally dead. With Terry Schiavo, her brain was literally mush, but her brain stem was still was still fine. So she was a living husk of a human, essentially.
Hmm.
You could harm Terry Schiavo's body in the sense of, like, make it stop functioning. You could beat up Terry Schiavo's
Yeah.
husk of a body, but I think it'd be accurate to describe that as harm. But Terry Schiavo, the husk, could not suffer. So I do think that there is a meaningful distinction
Hmm.
there. I would advise using the term suffering because that's what we want to avoid.
Yeah. Well, what I've been saying instead, and what somebody had pointed out recently, is instead of saying one, I never say harming something. I say experiencing harm. Just because I think that's a little bit easier, and that's more analogous to suffering. But they take that to be like, can you harm something? But I would still kind of say that you can't harm something without a perspective, or at least when you're using that word, you're implying like a purpose or like a telos to that term. So when I say like I'm harming a tree, what you're saying is that the tree is no longer able to perform the function of being a tree that I deem valuable. And it's like, okay, but the I deem valuable part is doing a lot of carrying in what you're saying, because chopping down a tree is good when we need it. You know what I mean? Like you can say that it's harm, but you can strip away the morality of the harm if there's not an experiencer. And so in the case of the tree or the Terry Schiavo case, you could always say that it's harmful to me, a bystander, the experience when you do that, and so it's still a harmful action, even though you would say that Terry Schiavo isn't suffering or something like that. I'm still trying to work on how to describe this, because all of those words that I just used to describe this distinction is not going to get out in an abortion conversation,
No.
because it requires so much good faith. Like, to even understand, like, to even get to where we're at right now is like 20 minutes of conversation that just will never happen. And so I don't know what to say to get past this, if you're doing like abortion debates live. But I think that your ability to challenge these things is really interesting. I think another thing too, though, maybe you're being more humble, which is probably what you should do. But I do think that if you say that this is something that anybody can do, I think that that kind of breeds the college kids who go up against Charlie Kirk and just get like totally dunked on. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like saying this is kind of giving false hope to maybe some people. So I wonder if you have distinctions or like things that they need to do, things that they need to be able to do before they can engage in a conversation like this. Like, if you were to train somebody to be able to do what you do, how would you do that? Like, what do they need?
Oh God. Okay, so you were right. Maybe saying like I mean, anyone can do this, but the question is, should anyone do this? And it depends on the sacrifices that you want to make in your life. So, for example, people like Charlie Kirk, people like Myron, people like the pro-life girl. Her name is Lydia Taylor Davis. These are people who have been doing this for years. You need to
Mm-hmm.
have like years of debate experience yourself, because they're going to do every trick in the book. They're going to try to intuition pump. They're going to pivot. They're going to take the conversation like 90 degrees to the right, and you won't even realize that happened. That happened in the Charlie Kirk debate when I was going against him, and because I had asked him, should we have pulled the plug on Terry Schiavo? He asked a different question, and then we were on something totally different. And then I realized, like, I think like 2, 3 minutes later, I was like, wait, this motherfucker never answered my question, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
most
yeah.
people would never pick up on that. So
Mm-hmm.
you've got to have one, I would say at least a few years of debate experience, and then two, whatever it is you're going to challenge them on, you need to be an expert at what you're about to talk about, okay? Because they will lie. They will say straight up bullcrap, okay? Like,
Mm-hmm.
they will deny academic consensuses on like really stupid contexts. So yeah, you need to have debate experience and I would say expert knowledge on what it is you're about to talk about. But the
Yeah.
sacrifices you have to make, like if you're in college, like you should be trying to find like someone who maybe you'll spend your life with. You should be trying to find somebody or live your life, going to functions, meeting friends, making connections. You shouldn't have to be worrying about geopolitical issues. So what's the
Sure.
sacrifices you want to make? That's the ultimate thing it comes down to.
No, I think you're right too. And apparently, one of the barriers to entry is you have to have a locked in answer as to what a woman is. I don't know if he asked you this question, but like I've seen him so many times when you can see he's getting cornered, and unironically, he's just like, "What is a woman?" And then he sets the mic down, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" Like the biggest pivot like in the universe, right? And so I guess like maybe you also need to just have like a locked in answer to that question if you're gonna do
You know
debates.
the
Do you have an
lock?
answer to this?
Yeah, I do. It's your mom. Just say your mom, bro.
That's funny. Yeah, that's good.
As
Mom is a woman, right?
probably, I guess, maybe.
Yeah. True. True.
That's the thing with these people when like they're not serious people. Okay, when someone says that like this is a joke and you should give a joke answer. Okay, like
Hmm.
when someone goes up to you. Do you remember like being in high school and someone goes up to you and is like, "You're gay." Okay, what's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
worst thing you could do? What's the worst thing you could do?
Be like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, and they're like,
Yeah.
you're gay, right? Like, and you
Yeah.
take it,
Yeah.
but they're
Sure.
they're just taking the piss. You need to take the piss back. Okay, you just gotta be like, I'm gay. Am I gay? Ask your dad, bitch, right? Something like that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
flip it back on them in some kind of way where you don't give a fuck because it's not a serious answer or not a serious
Yeah.
attack.
Did you talk to Hayden Rodea, right?
Yes.
Yes. How was this conversation?
The abortion one, I think, could have gone a lot better, but I was sick as a dog. It was right after Christmas, and my family had given me the gift of the flu. So, like,
Oh,
I don't know if you
sure.
want to, I was coughing like a dog left and right, man.
Uh-huh. And then you talked to him about trans issues as well,
Oh my
right?
God,
Or was this two separate conversations?
it was all in the same day, but they were two separate debates, and he got cooked on the trans shit, dude. Oh my God. But the abortion one kind of felt like a draw. But I'm okay with that, all things
Sure.
considered.
Sure. Sure. Right. 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 How did the transgender debate go with him?
Fantastic because it was nothing but feels. I even said that in the conversation. I wish I was a little meaner to him, to be honest. Going back on the
Hmm.
left needs to be meaner to the right because I'm gonna get into it, but like yeah, we gotta amp it up. But
Yeah.
yeah, with the trans stuff, I was like, can you give me one study that shows that cisgender women are at risk to transgender women in restrooms or places of privacy? And the answer, of course, was fucking no. And I called that shit from the beginning.
Hmm.
I said, can you give me one study that shows that transgender women are only transgendering themselves, mutilating themselves or whatever, as he said it, just to further the trans ideology? Because he had this weird thing. Oh, and the answer, of course, was no. My stance is, these are people who have a mental condition such that they feel they're born in the wrong body, and we should do what we can to accommodate for that. And I think that's a valid thing that helps with human flourishing. That's why I think it's okay. There's no harm in me validating that. But there is
Hmm.
harm in me invalidating that because then you see things like suicide risks increase, and that means that they can't contribute to society, and that's a bad thing. I think hopefully we should all intuitively agree about that. Hayden's stance is, they don't actually believe in their ideology, but they're mutilating themselves anyway to further the ideology because they've been indoctrinated by it. But it's like, wait, you just said they don't actually believe. Like it's incoherent. His stance on it.
Yeah. Well, and an extension of this too that I thought was really interesting. I don't remember if you actually pointed this out or not. Is he was talking about suicide rates, and he's saying like if every person felt marginalized, they could threaten suicide to get what they want.
That was
So
the
we shouldn't be taking seriously. That is such a strange point because you can't threaten suicide. Like because what we're looking at is suicide numbers, not suicide attempts or threats. It's like people are actually killing themselves. You don't get to see the benefits of you killing yourself because you're dead. And so you can't like weaponize this to achieve an outcome
So his
because they're
stance on that,
they're
wait, I can
gone.
answer that for you. Okay, so
Uh-huh.
I'll like play devil's advocate. His stance is they're
Sure.
killing themselves to further that ideology. In the same way, we're like, do you know that video of like the monk who like burned himself alive to make a political statement, for example?
Yes, I've
It's like
heard
an
of this
old
before.
one.
Or
If you have to,
Christians killing themselves
yeah,
as a
for their,
devout
yeah.
for God or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
sure, sure.
And he's saying that transgenders will quote unquote like do the same thing. Like I'm using his terminology. Trans people
Uh-huh.
will do the same thing to further their ideology, but they also don't believe it. Like it's crazy. But yeah,
Sure, sure. I do think that with the bathroom things, though, this is kind of one of those issues that I understand how little it affects the actual population of people, given that transgender people represent like less than 1% of the actual population of people. However, it's like 90% of discourse for no reason. So I understand like the
oh, it's not for no
little
reason.
impact. Oh no, I know. Yeah, sorry. Because it doesn't actually affect people, but they talk about it as just unrepresentatively, whatever, right?
A
But
distraction.
what I
Yeah.
will say too, yeah, what I will say too, though, is that the bathroom concerns, even if there was no maybe statistics that backed up the actual assault rates that happen in a bathroom, because the real truth is if someone's going to assault somebody, the bathroom sign is not going to stop them from doing that. Like I don't know what person who was about to commit a crime was walking in, he's like, ugh, the sign, you know what I mean? Like that, I've always thought that was a little ridiculous, but I do think that the genuine concerns about the uncomfortability, like when explaining to kids, or the uncomfortability just having somebody in there who is like of a different gender. I do think that that is like harmful for people, whether it's bigoted or whether it's accurate or whatever, right? I do think that's a real feeling that a lot of people have, though,
Yeah.
and I think that that's worthy of these kinds of restrictions. And I just don't understand why we can't just be like, okay, the bathroom thing was like a little much and the sports thing maybe was a little much, right? But the other stuff, we shouldn't be disparaging against transgender people. We just need to figure out a better way to include them in our society or something like that. I guess like why does this maybe not jive with you, or do you agree?
Yeah, no, and I think that's actually a valid concern for people to have. But then when you actually think about it, it's not like that, right? So what their stance is that I'm trying to think of a way to put this in a way where people will understand. But transgender women are not. They're afraid of. Here's what they're actually afraid of. And for people who don't understand like the mental things going on and like the mens rea, if you will, for why people, like a a male may want to present feminine, right, as a female, they may not understand this, but I'm going to try to put it as best as I can. If there's any questions, feel free to let me know to elaborate.
Mhm.
For they're afraid of cisgender men playing Scooby Doo as a woman and then touching women in the bathroom or like taking photos of them. That's
Mhm.
what they're thinking transgender women actually are. But then when you look at statistics, what's actually happening in these cases? In cases where transgender women are going to the restrooms assigned with their sex at birth, then what you see is an increase of assaults happening, those increase, versus when transgender people use the bathrooms that are associated with their internal gender identity, then assaults decrease. My position has always been to mitigate human suffering, so obviously the case is I'm going to pick the one where assaults decrease, and that aligns with transgender women using the bathroom of their choice. Well, transgender
I
people,
see.
but yeah.
Okay. Okay. Would you have a problem with I guess what's happening in a lot of places, which is just gender neutral bathrooms as well. So you have male bathrooms, female bathrooms, and then gender neutral bathrooms. Do you have a problem with maybe making this a more mainstream or more common, and then enforcing the rules that have been traditionally held with bathrooms, or do you see an issue with this at all?
To my
with
knowledge,
having like a third option?
no, I like the idea of having a third option. Non-binary representation. Why not? Let's go. I'll accept. Some people say like 20 genders. I think that's absurd. I'd say three. Pick either the male gender, female gender, or non-binary, and just kind of leave it at that.
Hmm.
But
Sure.
for a third option, yeah, I'm totally in favor of that. I think you see that in places like Sweden, for example. I don't remember if they got rid of gendered bathrooms or if it's just super common to have it, but it seems like it's working out pretty well for them. Some people like to point out that Sweden now is like the quote unquote rape capital of the world, but that's not true. They just expanded the definition of rape, I think, to like relate with like anything related to any kind of sexual assault, and then obviously when you expand the
Oh, sure.
definition, you expand the cases. But
Yeah,
yeah, it
yeah.
seems to work well there.
Well, I do think that is interesting. The frustrating thing has been that liberals have been expanding the definition of rape and sexual assault to account for every single thing. So they should be considering, you know, these other places the rape capital of the world because they themselves have expanded the definition, right? But
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. From the conservative perspective, they should not be buying into this at all. That it's increasing via the definitions. I do want to bring it back to abortion just a little bit.
Right.
You talk about kind of like this outcome oriented conversation. I guess why do you frame like abortion in this kind of way? Like you were talking about the suffering of women, pregnant women increases when you limit. Like why do you talk about it in this way?
Right. So when we look at what happens with abortion, abortion at a worst case scenario, when it's from a woman who wants the abortion, at a worst case scenario, it is a totally neutral action, assuming it's prior to 20 weeks. But with a pro-life stance, we can look at the objective suffering that emerges as a result of forcing women effectively to be breeding grounds. And that is in these metrics like intimate partner violence increasing. That is women getting baby trapped with abusive husbands. That is destroying households economically. That is destroying people's lives because they can't go to college anymore. Or maybe that's in the form of people say, "Oh, put it up for adoption," but like, have you seen the adoption to prison pipeline? Like, it's not a good
Sure.
outcome, right? Like, it's the amount of suffering that increases as a result of the pro-life movement is exponential. It's factorial
Sure.
in comparison to like the pro-choice,
Yeah,
which
sure.
is again neutral at worst. So yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely
Well,
got that.
I think that's a really good way of framing it, and I think holding on to that is good. What I will say is that a frustrating pro-choice argument and something that I've tried to talk against is when you say that you can't consistently be pro-life but not support other things. So a lot of times it'll be like you can't be pro-life and pro-guns, right? Or you can't be pro-life but also like think that something's different about the genocide going on in Gaza or something like that. I dislike these framing. I dislike this framing because again, it kind of jumps over what the foundational conversation is supposed to be about, which is whether or not the fetus is a person or not.
Right.
I've seen you weaponize these things. I imagine that you have maybe tried to establish this at the beginning and then this maybe like didn't go like where it should have. They weren't engaging with it and then you kind of needed to do some of these other things. But I guess like I really hate this kind of argument, but I guess like how do you feel about it?
So it depends on the context, because I think what you're referring to is with the Lydia conversation. What was so funny is it was her. She's the one that brought up voting, okay? She's the one who did that. I told her, because we have to look at what is the context of the discussion. And
Hmm.
I think when we're talking about abortion in of itself, and not even talking about voting, just the topic of abortion, I agree with you that those things shouldn't be brought up because that's just a straight up pivot, right?
Hmm.
But then when someone goes into the topic of voting, all bets are fucking off at that point, okay? Like, you're gonna tell me, okay,
Yeah,
that you're
sure.
pro-life. You are pro-life. You're gonna bring up voting, and then you're gonna vote for the guy who guts USAID, who ends up killing over 600,000 fucking people who are sentient and capable of suffering. Like, she's the one that
Yeah.
brought up voting. It was just a fucking layup at that point, and I was actually so happy
Yeah.
that she brought it. It was such a fumble on her part.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, I honestly like in conversations like that, you would never catch me telling you who I voted for if like I could sense like I would never bring that up and then be transparent. I'd be like, "Whoa, I'm just talking about abortion here," you
But
know.
here's the thing, though. The difference is you're not going around debating random college kids who are going to like their calculus 2 class. Okay, her
Uh-huh.
whole thing is doing that. Her whole thing is gambiting on college students not being politically educated on what's going on, because there's a lot going on, man. Like, there's a new thing happening like
Yeah.
every fucking week, and
Yes.
she's been able to get away with saying you voted for someone that wants to strip the rights away of millions of Americans. Which, first off, you're not an American until you're born here, Lydia. But that's
True. True.
God.
Well, they're actually trying to get rid of that too. So
I
it's
know.
actually, yeah, you're not American unless you're white inside the womb.
Yeah,
That's the only way, right?
basically. But
Yeah.
that goes back to, if I could end this point on like one specific thing, it's that they are all smoke and no substance. Okay, like they're talking points
Yeah.
with a lot of money behind them, and it's scary, but it's you can see through it. Have you ever
Yeah.
seen It Chapter 2?
Yes. It's been a while. I haven't seen it since it came out, but yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
Do you remember how they kill Pennywise
Not in the second one, no.
in the second one? He's like in the big spider thing, and they're like, "You're just a clown."
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
dude, it's the exact same thing. It is the exact same thing, okay? Like, they're big and scary, but if
Uh-huh.
you know in your heart and in your brain, you know that these are clowns with no substance, and you know the debate strategy and the substance behind the subject, they're just clowns, and you just have to remember that.
Yeah, and I think that's important to for context. Although what I will say is the unfortunate part is that when you talk to like the layman who has been like listening to a lot of these conversations and they don't realize it, but they're kind of just parroting whoever their favorite social pundit, whatever they say, they just kind of parrot the same things. But when you talk to them about abortion or like any of these topics, they have substance, and it's very strange because they're just parroting off the same thing, but when you talk to it, it's like, and when you listen to like the pro-life idea, like I understand where they're coming from. They have some intuition that like you made the decision to have sex and then you got pregnant, and it's like the universe is supposed to take on this. The universe is supposed to be a specific way, and then you're doing an action to undo a mistake that you could have avoided just by not having sex or something like that. And they know that everybody was born because two people had sex and you were conceived and you weren't aborted. That's the only way people are here, right? And so you look at these like ideas and you're like, okay, like I understand what you're saying. Your intuitions are good. The problem is that when pundits who know better are weaponizing this, that's when it starts to get a little like clownish. Like that's when you start playing the circus music, because I just think that like they're operating to imbue these values in people, but they're not actually operating to defend these values in people. And I think that if you can attack this in the conversation, you're doing a really good job. One of the interesting things that I thought you did a really good job of doing this in the conversation with Lydia was you talked about how they should be violently opposing Planned Parenthood. Like if your values are the way that you're describing them, you should be violently attacking Planned Parenthood, but you're not. What's going on here? Can you explain this argument and how it works? Or if you have thoughts on what I said, like go ahead. But
No,
this is
yeah, yeah, yeah.
interesting.
What I will say is, just to make sure that I don't take Lydia out of context, it's not that they should be doing this, because I think there's a very strong answer that it's politically not a good idea to do that, right? In the
Uh,
same way where it's like there are some people, who on the right, like, yeah, I'm going to say this with my fucking chest, okay? There are some people on the right where, like, if they got, like, punched in the face, look, maybe I would throw a party that day. Should they get punched in the face? No, don't do that. That's a
no,
very bad idea.
I
Like,
see.
genuinely, they shouldn't do that. But, like, would it be virtuous? I might throw a party, you know? I'm just
Sure,
being totally real. But
sure.
no, but seriously, no one should do that. I genuinely do mean that. Like,
Right, right, right.
and that's the same thing that I was saying with Lydia. I was saying, would it be virtuous for someone to be blowing up Planned Parenthoods with the abortion doctors inside? Would that be a virtuous action? Not condoning it, but would it just be virtuous? And the
Hmm.
answer, if you think that punching Nazis during World War II is virtuous, and you think that what's happening with abortion is worse than the Holocaust, like the answer is so fucking obvious. Okay, like it's so
Yeah, yeah.
obvious.
This is
Yeah,
a good point. I thought this was really good, and I had read some of the comments on this post, and people were like, "What is this guy yapping about?" And I was like, "This seems I'm gonna use this in the future because the intuition is the same, right? I mean, a lot of people feel this way, like this is why pro-choice people feel so comfortable just spouting off my body, my choice, because they don't have an understanding that the pro-life people genuinely think that this is murder and they genuinely think this is a huge atrocity. That's the only you are not understanding that is the only reason why you would go around saying my body, my choice. It's like you don't have a choice to murder somebody, but it's like if the pro-life people actually believe this, they should be like destroying the government until this problem is solved. Like
yeah,
this should be like the biggest uprising in the history of all humanity, right? But it's not, and that's because intuitively you know exactly what's happening here.
yeah.
And it's very dishonest that they do this. How do you feel about the conversation on the left right now? I know you've talked. Like I saw a clip of you talking recently about the right has kind of like a unifying principle, but the left is missing that. And I've heard Destiny talk about this a lot too, and kind of waging war against very hard progressive like leftists people. I guess like what is your stance on this?
Yeah. So what's so hard is because the right has control over almost all media, like Fox News and X. They just have the biggest, and the entire fucking government. They have
Oh,
all this control over what they say the left is. It makes it difficult for the left's views to actually be like shown. So when it comes to like chafing off people like Hassan or like other like far left dipshits, we have to do that. These people have to be expunged because they are not friendlies. Uh, but like the far right, they at least know that they can use conservatives as useful idiots to shift the Overton window to their political goals. But the far left does not give a fuck. I think they're genuinely just grifting, or they're just
yeah, sure.
yeah, whatever. But
Yeah, well, I do think like how do you feel about like Nick Fuentes and like Candace Owens kind of loudly shaking off? Like it's easy for people on the right and everyone to be like, "Oh, well, they're obviously not a part of it." But like they kind of are, you know?
yeah,
So like they've been kind of shaking off recently. To me it seems like the right is kind of trying to do the same thing.
I think at the end of the day, I think they will get back in line. I truly, in my heart of hearts, do think that they're going to get back in line at some point. Maybe not Fuentes, depending on who they put up. Um, wait, actually, even then, oh, that's a hard one, man. Because the right is
Mhm.
so unhinged, and we have no idea where the hell they're going to go after Trump. It's going to be a question with the far right and I guess I have to call them moderate conservatives, because, like, I want to make it clear any person that's still supporting Trump is not a fucking moderate, okay? But
Yeah,
for the
sure.
sake of, like, the American political spectrum now, I, I guess I have to call them moderate. It's hard to
Yeah,
define.
sure.
But
Yeah.
between, like, your Candace Owenses and your Nick Fuenteses versus, like, your average mill dipshit Trump voter, the question is going to be the alignment to Israel. It's going to be
Oh,
a
yeah.
question of Israel. So if the next Republican candidate is super anti-Israel, I think they'll all get in line in a fucking heartbeat.
Mm.
Otherwise, I think we will see that division still.
Interesting. I think you're definitely right on this. It's always the Jews. That's
It's
always where
always
the
the Jews.
conversation ends up. It's always where the
all,
conversation ends up.
all roads lead to Israel, dude.
Yeah, dude. I just think of the Alex Jones like Jew, Jew. It's like I see this in the comment section all the time. It's like absolutely crazy. But what I will say is that I'm in an interesting position right now because I want to hold on to the moniker of center right. You know what I mean? But I'm only 23. Like I'm pretty the only right I've known is Trump. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
when I think about like it's hard to defend like right-wing politics when I don't agree with the representative of the right wing right now. You know what I mean? So I'm like this very strange like never Trump Republican, but I don't even know what that means anymore because all I've known is this. And so now I'm deciding like how would I, because I'm gonna vote for a left leaning, or I'm gonna vote for a Democratic candidate for the next election, like almost 100% right. Unless I can get somebody from the right who seems normal and will just like avowedly like disavow Trump. Like he's just like, we were all kidding, like this guy was terrible or whatever, and he's not lying. He's just been like, dude, this was horrible, and I understand. Like maybe that might get me to engage with this, but I don't know. Like who are you supporting on the left right now for like your vote?
Oh God, are we talking local or are we talking about like maybe potential presidential nominees?
Yeah, presidential. Yeah.
So the two picks right now, obviously Gavin Newsom, which I'm not gonna lie, I love the idea of a Newsom presidency. I love the idea of it because he is willing to play the tit for tat game, as we saw
Hmm.
with the redistricting of California when they were going to do that with Texas. That is something I fell in love instantly, because the problem is, do you remember how earlier we talked about how the left has been too soft on the right?
Yeah.
The right cucked Obama out of a Supreme Court pick. He was going to nominate Merrick Garland, and then Mitch McConnell was like, no, and there was like a year left, dude. And the
Hmm.
left has never done anything like that to the right. And letting the right just like steamroll all these like crazy unethical things, this is the most cucked position in the world. And it seems to be the case that Gavin Newsom, to my knowledge, he's the only one that's actually done something to be like,
Yeah.
no, like fuck you. So right now, Gavin Newsom 100%, because I'm gonna be sure there has to be retribution for what's happened. There has to be, and I think Newsom
Yeah.
would be willing to do that. And for another pick, I don't know if Tallarico would run for president, but uh, he's very nice. He seems like a very nice guy, which is not a bad thing for the district he's in
Hmm.
Texas. But those would be my two choices there.
Honestly, anything that just seems normal is so attractive to me. Like I'm at a point right now, like after 4 years of Trump and then 4 years of Biden and then 4 years of Trump, like even JD Vance right now is looking okay to me because he's just like a normal person
I
who's
don't know about
just
that.
speaking.
I don't
No,
know about
I know.
that.
I have to look into this. I have to look into this. Seen this reaction before. This is an uneducated opinion that I'm giving about JD Vance. But what I can say is just this is the same with Mondani too. Like just the fact that he's like a semi-young person who speaks competently with real words. Like that is enough for me to just like I'm floating towards the smell of pie right now, and it's
Yeah,
just a young person who is like able to speak.
who
I
is
think that
coherent?
like that's where we're at right now, where that's like really frustrating to me. So it's hard for me. It's hard for me to make picks, but I think you're right. What I will say is that the frustrating part about tit for tat is that there will always be this rewriting of history
Mm-hmm.
that justifies where it started. And if you can't like convince somebody that this is where it started, it becomes really nebulous and hard to say that like, oh, we're just responding when they were just responding and then they were just responding and then they were just responding. And so you talk about the Supreme Court pick, and I'm sure that the conservatives will have something to say about like, well, this is because Obama drone striked one of the U.S. citizens, or he's like said something about like race relations
The
and
Al
said
Qaeda
like, "Oh, white people
propagandists.
suck." Yeah, like you know what I mean. Like, there's
Yeah, that, that,
always a
that.
bigger fish. You know what I mean? Like, there's always something, and I just don't know where we're supposed to start. I don't know where the misinformation starts and where it because somebody from the left is always going to say that it's just misinformation that started this train of tit for tat. But then the right's going to say that it's actually, you know what I mean? And so it's like very hard for me to engage in this system of retribution because I can't figure out where it started.
Yeah, and I think there's two angles that we can look at this from. One, it's that we know that it's not reasonable for anyone who's not like politics being their job. No one's gonna know like everything. You know, like people bring up the Obama killed an American citizen talking point, but
Mhm.
like that person was in some Middle East country who was an Al Qaeda propagandist. Which I'm like, yeah, fuck that guy, you know. If whatever. But then the second thing that we have to look at is, okay, we are so divided, okay. Either A, the answer maybe is somewhere in the middle, or B, one side is just totally fucking right and then the other side is insane. And let's look at, okay, what side believes in vaccines? Okay, what side believes in like any kind of institution, right? Like academic institutions, for example. Okay, what side, says the Earth is 6,000 years old? Okay, what side thinks that we should let Russia take Ukraine, right? When we look at these things, it becomes so obvious that like okay, like one side is just like pushing out bullshit.
Hmm.
Oh my god, one side thinks the 2020 election was stolen, and like oh
Big
god,
one.
don't even get me started on January 6th. God damn. But like
Yeah.
yeah, you see what I mean? It's like
What do
one
you?
side just straight
Yeah.
lying.
What do you think like the right's response to what you just said would be? Like what I know exactly what they're gonna say, and I think you do too, but what do you think their response is gonna be to you saying that?
The left thinks that men can become women.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. And then they'll say like the left thinks that men can become women. The left riots over the murder of criminals. The left uh it's getting hard actually to come up with the list of things the left believes without actually you know looping them in with people that aren't the left. The left believes in communism. The left believes that we should steal from the rich or the there might be more. The left wants to doesn't believe in morals because they're not religious or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Like they have a list of things. Granted, it's a much shittier list, right? But like they have it, and so still when I was talking about that uncomfortability of feeling biased within my own heart, I'm just really struggling to get past this, and these are part of the problems I think, but I don't know if there's a solution. Maybe it's more time. I'm not sure.
The solution I would say is I guess we have to look at like what's the short term solution insofar as like the discussion, which I think on the left, I think I would say that you've got to get them to take your arguments first because they will yap about like the left believing in communism and then you say like okay give me one communist person in office. Okay, well so you got three of the social justice Dems. Okay, but like there's like what 200 something Democrats in federal office, and you can only
Hmm.
point to me like three versus like every person who got in line with Trump. But that's why I'm saying you need to establish your side, I believe, first, and then I think you can have a good faith conversation about the other things, and then make them
Uh-huh.
start questioning things. Hopefully,
Sure.
but the problem is now we have to look at the long term solution because after you talk to them and then you hopefully plant the seed in their head that like maybe I should look into this more, what they're going to do is they're going to go on Twitter and then they're going to get a feedback loop of all the bullshit that they've been like just intaking for the last like
Hmm.
decade and a half on fucking like Twitter. There has to be a total restructuring of how social media and news works because the entire the entire American population has just been brainwashed and it's tragic.
Yeah, I think you're right on this. We've been going for a little bit more than an hour, so I want to wrap it up. But I want to give you the opportunity to kind of close this out. So please do any plugging for your channels, your organizations, anything you're a part of. And then if there's a theme for people who have made it this far, a take home message you want them to go home with, it's really your opportunity to wrap us up.
Thank you so much. So I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure being on here, and thank you so much for the time. So I'll end off on this. The right, I hate to sound biased, and what you said was absolutely correct, but the right is absolutely fucking insane today. I do think that there is a potential for them to come back, but right now the right is so indoctrinated in so much propaganda. I hope that soul searching is able to happen because I want a good Republican Party. But right now, that doesn't exist with MAGA and it doesn't exist with Trump. And the left objectively is better on almost every metric. Okay, the center left, I'll say that. Okay, your liberals, these are great people. Your communists, fuck them. Okay, your socialists, not a fan. But your libs, all right, these are people you should be fucking with. But anyone that is like to the right of Massey right now, they're fucking insane. Okay, please stop. looking at Trump shit. It's fucking insane. My name is Ethan Alexander. My handles are I'm officially Ethan. And please support me and the Unfuck America tour, which is part of National Ground Game. We're out here trying to spread the good word of liberalism and democracy. So thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, man.
I gotta ask, what do you think happens with the right moving forward? Because genuinely, I have no idea, man. I have no fucking clue.
I'm not sure either, dude. I think that for me, I think that it needs to be like a very accepting moment. Like we talk about the tit for tat thing, and I think that that is becoming an increasing sentiment on the left. And so this is either going to spark one of two options. It's either a civil war happens, like a literal, like actual war happens between the left and the right, or the right's like, okay, we're done fucking with you guys. Let's we accept that Trump was insane. We accept that we're doing this stuff. We're gonna try to reform.
Yeah.
The trying to reform thing, I think, is possible, but I don't. I'm very skeptical of this, especially if the left doesn't take it. The problem is that you have these systems that both sides hate. Like both sides hate filibustering, both sides hate government shutdowns, both sides hate gerrymandering, except when they get the opportunity to take advantage of it, in which case they do. And so
Yeah.
the problem is, it's like if we can get the left to do this tit for tat thing and hold this moral hierarchy to force the right to do something, that's great. But they have to also not take advantage of that opportunity to do shit that nobody likes. And so that's the hard part. That's always the hard part, is like not going too far and taking advantage of this opportunity. And I think that I'm actually more skeptical that the left is going to be able to refrain from doing it than I am that the right could accept responsibility. I'm actually more unbelieving of the left's ability to not take advantage than the right's ability to accept within themselves. But my politics is bad. Like it's all macro, it's all philosophy. It's like very little history, you know. So I could be hopefully mistaken on this, but I don't know what to do. I have no idea.
Yeah. Dude, I wish the left would take advantage of this shit, bro. I wish they would. Like, with the way things are now, yes. Like, I hate, like, saying that, but, like, God, are you familiar with, just so you know, I'm not recording anymore or anything like that.
No, you're good.
Are you familiar with, the prosecutions with Merrick Garland and, January 6th?
I know quite a bit about January 6th, but my name vocab is really bad. But
That's fine.
not really, no.
Dude, they should have been like fucking Jack Smith should have been on that shit. He's the special prosecutor for the January 6th stuff. He should have been on that shit day fucking one, okay, of Biden's term, and they pussyfooted it because they didn't want to come off as like partisan,
Yeah.
right? I'm not kidding. That's why they took so long to do the January 6th prosecutions. And that's just like, there's a really awesome phrase. And have you heard "everyone is 9"?
Everyone is 9. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Um, so everyone on the right is 9 years old, and everyone on the left is 90. So,
I see.
so for example, on the right, okay, we have a bunch of crime in Washington D.C. Let's send in the military, bro.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. You're 9 years old. Good thinking. Let's send in the fucking military
Uh-huh.
to DC to get rid of crime, okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, Maduro, we don't like him. Let's invade fucking Venezuela, even though they
Yeah.
have not like attacked any sovereign country. Like, that's a
Sure.
great idea. You're
Bro,
9. Let's
yeah.
get the bad guy.
Bro, you got a
Right?
headache? Let's blow that shit smooth off. Like, let's just...
You know, like, look, on our
yeah, yeah. Like, it's like it solves
we
the
got
problem. illegals.
Let's deport them all.
Yeah.
Like, okay, right.
No, I
Okay,
get
sure,
it. I
you're
get
9.
it. And the
Yeah.
thing is that like I agree with you that it's the thing is that for change to happen, one side has to become vulnerable enough to not take advantage of the change. That's the only way you're gonna get it, because everybody is always going to say like, you know, oh, but they shut down the government when they had opportunity. That's how tit for tat works. And two things are required to stop the process of tit for tat, I think, and it's one of them is that one side takes responsibility and stops titting, and the other side has a proportional tat, and then that's how it works.
Like,
Is you need to be proportional, and so I think that while I agree with you that like we should take advantage of it, like I like what you're talking about with Gavin Newsom doing the redistricting. Like I think that this is a really good example of encouraging the right to stop because we're just going to do that shit too. But the idea is that this process has been happening for a millennia and like it's increased significantly because of insane presidencies, but that doesn't mean that we really need to increase it even more. You know what I mean? Like it's very hard for even I don't even know what to do. Like I have no fucking clue.
no,
But
I see what you mean.
yeah.
And I there's one statement that you said which is not accurate, and it's
Mm,
that it's been happening for millennia. The tit for tat stuff, it hasn't. The left has been unbelievably weak. Like so, like for example, a great example of the left not tit for tatting is give me one example where you know how Trump ran on lock her up in 2016 for
with
relating to
Clinton.
Hillary?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like who's someone on the left that said that about like anyone running for office?
Well, they're saying it about Trump because he deserves it for January 6th, right? The problem is
Yeah,
that
but
there's
that's
a
fucking
truth.
reasonable.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah,
the fucking
yeah,
reasonable part is like always going to get in the way of how we can compare these things. You know what I mean? It's always, there's a truth foundation to this that is I don't know how to get past it. I really don't. Like not within myself. Like I feel like I have a pretty good grasp. I didn't vote for Trump in the
yeah,
last election because the January 6th stuff was just so fucking insane. Let alone the fact that he's 100 years old, like he had the same problems as
yeah,
Biden. Like, why are we ignoring
yeah.
this?
Oh my
Um,
god, yeah, that's crazy, dude.
so whatever, right? So I didn't vote for Trump, but I understand the rhetoric behind it too. So it's just hard, bro. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. We'll figure it out though.
Yeah, yeah. God, dude, like, because the thing, it's such a complicated problem because a lot of people who are MAGA are like just how many like MAGA people have you talked to like in person and like had to like, try to change their mind?
A few. Like two or three that are like close where I get to actually have a good conversation, but not a ton.
Um, were they really close with you as like friends or like
Yeah,
family?
yeah.
Okay. Have you ever talked to the people who are MAGA who are not like friends or family?
Nah, not about MAGA issues, no.
Dude, they are the most NPC motherfuckers on the
Dude,
planet,
I'll watch
man.
I'll watch my close friends code switch. Like once we
Yeah.
start having a conversation, like once I heard I was talking about January 6th and I was kind of like I was fighting him on it. I was like, dude, this stuff was like actually insane. Like you're a Republican, you should agree with this. And then he unironically was like, how did you feel about the 2020 riots? And he was like, which one was worse? And I was like, are you doing this to me? Like your friend right now? Like, are we really doing this? Like I just thought that
I
that was
know.
so insane. I was like, you understand how different those two things are, right? Like just like conceptually they're attacking different kinds of problems and arguments, right? Like you understand that
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
differently worse that a president is doing this than a group of people. Like you right?
You want to know the craziest thing about January 6th, though? The real insurrection, it just blew my fucking mind, okay? And maybe you already know this. If you already know this, then
Let me
tell me
know.
shut the fuck
Let me know.
up. Going back to like the smoke and mirrors stuff, the real insurrection was not like all the violent rioters and they're insurrectionists. Decent, whatever. The rioters that went into the Capitol.
Uh-huh.
The real insurrection was not that.
It
It
was the
was
seven
them
slates
to,
of fake electorates that he sent out.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and then trying to tell Mike Pence to take that. That's the real insurrection.
Yes, and both are
That's what it was.
bad also, but yes, absolutely. No, you're completely
Yeah.
right. I do have to go here soon. I actually thought that this chunk of conversation was good as well. I'm still on recording on OBS. If you want me to throw this up at the end of the video, I'd love to too. But like, it's up to you.
No, yeah, go
I
for
said
it.
okay.
I will say I did stop recording, so I don't have it, but
No, no,
yeah,
no.
dude, feel
You're
free
good.
to throw it
Okay.
in for
Cool,
sure.
cool. Yes. Thank you so much. Stay in contact with me, however much you would like to, and then I'll do the same for you as well too. So, but okay, I will see you, man. I'll let you know when this stuff comes out.
Awesome. All right, be safe,
All
man.
right. See ya.
Later.
You too, dude.